Are buyers too broke to be able to afford classic and enthusiast cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, PCAR Market, and more? This is Bid Nerds. We're going to look at listings. We're going to look at some results of predictions we made on the last episode, and we're going to see if we can answer that question. Plus, we have all new predictions and guest host, third nerd, Wade Bennet. Bid Nerds is your YouTube car game show. Yeah, that's quick. All right, we are in. What's up, Wade Bennet? You're surprised by that one, aren't you, buddy?
I was almost picking my nose, and I'm glad I did.
You're like screwing around. Yeah, we shortened up the opening. Welcome, everyone. This is Bid Nerds. My name is John Polnik. I'm your host, along with my partner, Michael Deeb, in San Francisco. I'm in Las Vegas. Wade's in Las Vegas. What's going on, fellas?
Not much. Hanging out.
Welcome to the new intro, Wade. Wade didn't even have time to extinguish his cigarette. He's like live on camera. That's pretty good.
Really caught me off guard, but that's okay.
Well, all right. If you are new to the show, welcome. We've been getting a lot of new people in the Nerd Herd. The Nerd Herd folks are already hanging out in the live chat, so that's always fun. Wish I was there instead of here. But actually, I am pretty excited about being here. Look, this is the show where we analyze what's going on in all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. And the big question tonight, looking at all the auctions like we constantly do, is really, can anyone afford to buy any of these cars? We're always talking about Ferraris and Porsches and classic cars and stuff like that, and everyone is coming to me, is the market collapsing? Is it on fire? Is it crashing? You know, and our thumbnails always say stuff like that, but really, when you start looking at the data, it's not the end of the world, or at least it doesn't appear that way to me. Maybe my counter partners here, my other hosts, might have a different opinion. We're going to look at results from the last episode here really quick, but I'm going to do something a little different here, guys, at the opening of the show. I know we've never done this before, and this will probably just completely screw us up here. But I'm going to try something. Everyone's asking if anyone, like, on the last episode, we talked a lot about, do sellers just have really dumb expectations? And when you look at what's actually selling it and what's buying, I wanted to see if I could get you guys to give me some quick opinions. Let's see here. I'm going to go, can you guys see, let's see here. Can you see this? Oh, hold on. Let's see if we can get this to work. Sorry, guys. Bear with me. Some technical stuff. All right.
There we go.
Can you guys see this 69 Coyote Bronco?
Yes, sir.
All right. I want to ask you guys the question. Michael Deeb.
Yes.
At $130,000, did that fail to sell, or did it sell?
That's a really good question.
It's a short show. We only got an hour. Let's do it. Yeah, what do you think? Sold or not sold?
Sold.
All right.
Sold.
Wade, what do you think? At $130,000, sold or failed to sell?
Failed to sell.
Failed to sell. The answer is the Coyote failed to sell at $130,000. The next car on the list, 64 Corvette convertible 4-speed, $50,000 bid to. Did it fail to sell? Or did it sell at that price?
Failed
what do you think,
to sell.
Dave? Failed to sell. Wade, what do you think?
Failed
No
to
chance.
sell. Yeah.
Failed to sell. Not even close.
You guys are both correct. That was a fail to sell. All right, next car. This is like a lightning round. We've got a 96 Euro 355 GTS 6-speed with $182,000 bid at the end of the auction. Did that fail to sell, or did that sell?
Sold.
Sold. Wade, what do you think?
Please. It had to have sold. It had
Failed to sell, guys, on
Unbelievable.
BAT. Can you freaking believe that? This is insane. All right, here's another one. We've only got a couple more. We got a 1990 BMW 325i Coupe, $10,300. Sold or failed to sell? Deeb, you go first. Sold. Wade, what do you think?
Sold.
Sold to the highest bidder.
That did sell at $10,300.
Yes.
You both got it right. All right, here's kind of a lame car, but this one's great, right? CLK, year 2000, CLK 320. It's low spec, guys. 12,000 miles, though. Convertible, $14,500. Did that sell or fail to sell?
Sold.
Sold, he says. All right, Wade, what do you think?
That's all the money in the world and then some. Sold, sold, sold.
That is correct, gentlemen. The CLK sold, thank God. And the last car on the lightning round, a 2004 GT3 with only 2,100 miles on Bring a Trailer. The final bid was $141,000. Failed to sell or sell?
Failed to sell.
Failed to sell. Wade, what do you think?
No sale.
No sale. You guys are both correct. That car failed to sell at $141,000. That's some quick data, just ripping through it. That was from today, Sunday. So I don't know. Results are all over the place. I mean, I think that Coyote at $130,000 failing to sell is like, what the hell is wrong with that guy? This is just going to be, it's going to be crazy out there, but we will see. Now we're going to look at the auctions that we talked about in the last episode. So let's see what we got here. What was the first car on the list, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, we are going to quickly check back in on our Runge Frankfurt Flyer that was on Bring a Trailer. This is the number 3 that was made in the early 2010s to a guy in California in South Lake Tahoe. JP, this is the third one we've seen come to market. The previous 2 sold in the low $100,000 range. Our car is showing just 700 miles. These are hand-built, beautiful, achingly beautiful cars, and they're as rare in the market as they are in production. We love Chris Runge, and this was a great listing. We both thought this car would do well. I started the bidding at $150,000. Those 2 previous cars that sold for like 108 and 120 were in like 18 and 19 respectively. I think the market is very different now than it was then, even though it's soft. JP, you took the over and said $155,000. Wade, we're going to throw you in at the deep end. This has a Volkswagen drivetrain. They're handmade. They're really gorgeous cars. What do you think this would have done on BAT, original owner, less than 1,000 miles? He did race it in period, but the thing is, find me another one for sale, and that's why I would think this car would do really well. Where are you at?
Wade, before you answer that question, I just want to reach out to the nerd herd that's watching live. How do we sound tonight? We're not sure if we're having some sound issues, so let us know in the comments. And Wade, what do you think of this car?
Well, I'm going to say $133,000, knowing nothing about it, and hopefully everyone hears that bid. If they don't hear it, then I got it right. I'm the best.
Very good. All right.
Very good, JP. So, JP, this was a devastating. You and I talked about this offline. Devastating result. The car hammered at $88,888 on 46 bids. I'm looking through the roster. It looks like Philip at 111 might be the low man. But JP, here's where it gets weirder than that. No, Ross is at 109. Thank you, Ross. It sold for that price, and this was a reserve auction, which means the owner had already predetermined that no matter what this thing went for, he was going to let it go, because at $88,888, this car met reserve. I don't know what's more surprising, the fact that the natural auction didn't bring it over $100,000, or the fact that when it was still basically $11,000 shy of that plateau, this guy was willing to let go of this car. Hey, anybody out there in the nerd herd that knows of a Runge special that is for sale, call my partner JP. He'll buy it for this price. This is stunning result. I can't believe it didn't bid higher, and I'm even more shocked that it sold for that. JP, based on what we're talking about, everybody being broke, this guy, the guy who won this car, might be broke, but he also just got the golden ticket. I think he stole this car, JP. I don't care. Tell me what you want about the market based on the bid numbers. I'm sorry, based on the sale number here and how rare this car is. The build numbers is what I was looking for. I think this guy ripped this car. I think he's got another $40,000 in equity in this car if he turned around and sold it again. So, JP, what do you make of this? Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think because this show is called Bid Nerds, the emphasis is on the nerds. The fact that we know what this car is and hold it in such high regard. This is where it's dangerous being a car enthusiast, is sometimes you can get really excited and maybe overhyped about something. And, if I had the money at the time and was looking at maybe adding something to the collection, I definitely would have bid way higher for this car, and I would pay way more. I don't know if it's necessarily worth more money. I think the fact is just nobody knows what these are. This car, isn't very usable. It's something that it's got a small engine. I'm sure that it probably rips even with the little 1300 cc engine, but maybe it's just so niche upon niche upon niche that people just don't appreciate them. Wade, do you know anything about, and have you ever heard of Runge And what do you think of that result?
I have not. Knowing not a whole bunch about this car, I'm going to defer back to you guys a question. You know, JP, both things can be true, right? We can be really excited over a super niche car, but the market could also have just not been there that day. So I'm curious if there was maybe anything either of you guys learned about this car in particular that was different from the other couple of cars that were over six figures, or if maybe just the market wasn't there for this particular example.
Yeah, that's
JP, piggybacking Wade's point, Brian Ledden in the Nerd Herd asked if the VW, the particular VW drivetrain that's in this car, could have had a negative effect on the final price. In other words, if this thing had a 2.2 or a Type 4 versus what was in the car, would that have brought it up? Which is, you know, like, again, that poses the question to juxtapose the specs of this car versus the other two, which is what Wade is referring to. I think those are both really good points.
We can look at that 904 Avanti replica from a couple of weeks ago. That was a great build, tube frame. But that car had a 3-liter flat 6, and that particular car you talked about, Deeb, was previously sold fairly recently. It used to have a Subaru engine in that car, and that thing, when it sold last time at the height of the market, it only brought something like $60,000. But with the 3-liter 911 engine, it brought nearly 100. So I think, and we always talk about that, especially with Porsche or Porsche type stuff. This isn't a Porsche, but it's reminiscent of a classic Porsche. It's inspired by one. Really, anyone buying this is buying it because they love the 356 and that kind of era of Porsche. So you got to think that, yeah, powertrain probably made a big difference. And if someone put something much better in it, would it have brought more money? Wade, what do you think?
Probably. That might just be the answer to our question. I mean, is that a $20,000 to $40,000 difference or a $10,000 difference? I'm not really sure, but I think for 80 to 90K, you know, it's a really interesting car. You know, no one else is going to have it. It's kind of niche. It's kind of fun, but I still think they probably stole it, just given all the similar comparable stuff. Under 100K seems like a good deal for a really special, interesting car.
Yeah, and you'd have to pay almost $200,000 to have somebody bang out metal like that to make one of these. What were you going to say? Final word to you, Michael Deeb.
Yeah, JP, like a 1.7 or a 1.8, you know, like a 914 motor would certainly wake up this car. Not to say that it's a slouch because it's so light, but certainly adding that much more torque. So I think Brian did bring up a good point. And JP, to your point, that 904 with an engine swap brought over 50% more money. So drivetrain drives values, pun intended, and JP's been banging on that about some of these cool 911 builds that we often cover. If it's got the 3.6, if it's got a built 3.6, then you know that car is going to bring some serious money. And that could very well have been the case here. So great point by Brian. Thank you.
What do you guys think of the results of this beautiful, handcrafted, hand-built Runge? $80-something thousand. Was that a steal, or is that really just what this thing is worth and it needs a bigger engine? Or do people just not have enough money to buy classic sports cars anymore? We're going to keep talking about that question. We've got another car that we talked about in the last episode. This one can't really be called a classic car. It's barely even an enthusiast car. What was the next car on the list, Michael Deeb?
This future classic that we looked at just the other day, JP, is the 2015 Jaguar F-Type R rear-wheel drive automatic transmission, black with tan interior on the East Coast. But the big news here, JP, is that our listing on Bring a Trailer is showing just 10,000 original miles out of Utica, New York, and it's a one-owner car. We definitely were going to suspect that the mileage would drive the price because Jaguars are so soft in the secondary market. With that in mind, I was the high bidder at $48,000. JP, you took the under at $44,000. Wade Bennet, we'll put you right on the spot. What do you think this car would have hammered for on BAT with just 10,000 original miles and the best specification for the F-Type?
Oh man, I mean, more than 50% off retail, I'm sure. So I'm going to put it in $42,222.
All right, so Wade is taking the under. JP, our car hammered for $55,000 where it sold on 46 bids. My knee-jerk reaction here was that somebody stepped up because they saw the odometer and they're thinking, you know, I don't use the car very often, but I'd like to have the best of the best. This car really in the photos, JP, appears to look like a brand new car. And the mileage would suggest that even though it was on the East Coast, it was only used seasonally. And this is probably one of the nicest ones you could ever hope to find over the course of a calendar year in the secondary market. And JP, I don't think you could talk me out of the idea that mileage and condition drove the price here even above what we suspected. Because if this car had 36,000 miles on it, I don't even know if it would have broke 40. But with this condition, those miles, and let's face it, a pretty handsome colorway, this car brought all the money. So I don't think anything cheap was involved in this one. I don't think the guy was broke. I think somebody stepped up because they wanted the best of the best. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Wade, what do you think?
That's a lot of dollars, plus the bring and trailer fees. I mean, hopefully he's nearby, almost $60K out the door, all included. Like, that's a lot of money for this car. And the F-Types, they're tough to sell and resell. I mean, this guy is going to see this car if he actually ends up driving, and it's going to be a $30,000 car before he blinks. So it seems high to me, but I don't know. Maybe this is just the right car, the right color combination. And hopefully he does well. Hopefully he enjoys it. I mean, that car needs to have another 10,000 miles on the odometer.
Yeah. I mean, I think you guys are right as far as the low miles driving the price. But, yeah, talk about this person's going to take a huge depreciation hit. At the same time, if you do have the money, this is clearly someone that is not having a hard time affording buying a car that's going to be a boat anchor. This is not something like you spend $50,000, $60,000 on something like a classic 911 or that Runge. It's money in the bank. Yeah. Even it might adjust a little bit here or there. It might correct whatever, but this car is not going up ever. Like it's not low enough. The miles aren't low enough to make this car a collector car. This is a great driver. This is basically saying, I want that car, but I don't want to pay the premium for a new one. So I'll split the difference and get one that's basically new, save myself some money and actually drive it. Hopefully this car gets driven a lot. But when it's time to sell this thing, I think you guys are right. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments, and let's move on to the next car. Do buyers have enough money? Can they afford to buy classic and enthusiast cars? This next car, I think, will give us some pretty good indications as to an answer to that question. What do we got, Deeb?
JP, all that glitters isn't gold. The next car that we're going to check in on is the 1992 Volkswagen GTi 16-valve. JP, I learned something new when we reviewed this car. 92 was the last year for the Mark II GTi platform. That means our car has the beautiful 2-liter 16-valve inline 4. It also has those stunning Recaro seats that just make JP and I drool as car nerds. Gray cloth, and they just are stunning. They're about the most comfortable seats out there. Car also has 15-inch BBS wheels. Our particular car was listed out of San Diego, California, showing 88,000 miles, but it spent a lot of time in Arizona. The car looks good in the photos from the outside, but when you really get a close-up look, this car has about 100,000 miles worth of wear and tear on it. With that in mind, we thought this might be a long fly ball, but it would stay in the park. I gave the opening bid of $33,000. JP took the over, but only by a little bit at $35,000. What do you say, Wade? What do you think about this GTi? It looks good there's like 400 photos in the batch, and a lot of them are sexy snaps. But the close-up stuff shows chips and wear everywhere, underneath and all around the car. What do you think, Wade?
I'm not playing ball with you guys. I'm going to go under 30. Give me $28,500, and that's a triple for this car. It's not a home run. It's not going out of the park.
That's you, Deeb.
Yeah, and I think if JP had time to study the photos, he might have. I think if JP had time to study the photos, he actually would have gone under me. This one is going to shock both of you. Our car hammered for $56,000 where it's sold on 42 bids. JP, I thought the Runge Frankfurt Flyer that sold for under 90 was shocking. This particular GTi bringing over 40 was stunning. Over 50, more stunning still, but hammering at 56,000. Just like Wade was talking about that Jaguar that we saw, you add another $2,500 in BAT fees, you add shipping to wherever you're going to take this car. This guy's in this car over 60 grand before he pays tax on it and brings it home. This result doesn't make any sense to me at all, JP. This is a stunner. I'm going to say that when he gets this car home and takes a really close look at it, he's going to regret chasing this car and paying what he did. I think this was poorly bought, and a direct slap in the face to your opening question. Just goes to show you, fools with money will still buy for things that they think are good. I don't think this was a good purchase, but two people had to fight over it to get it to $56,000, which means there's a couple of knuckleheads out there that had money burning a hole in their pocket. JP, this one is more shocking than the Runge. Do you feel the same way?
Not as shocked. I hedged my bet by bidding right over the top of you. I had a feeling that this thing would go up pretty high, maybe hit 40s. But you know, playing the game that we play, you gotta keep it close to the vest. That said, I didn't think it would go to $56,000. I think what's interesting about the Mark II Volkswagen, we've covered some really nice Scirocco's and some bitch bucket cabriolets lately. Bunch of Mark II Volkswagens have actually popped up. We've talked about on the show many times how rare it is to find a nice one or a clean one or a decent one. And this one isn't perfect, but it's decent. And the funny thing is that unlike the Scirocco and the bitch bucket and the other Volkswagens of the era, the GTi really is the car that everyone wanted. People didn't want the Corrados. People didn't want the Scirocco's as much. They wanted this car right here. And I think nostalgia drives it. We have seen crazy results on nice Mark IIs before. Every time we talk about a Mark II, we bring up the $80,000 Mark II GTi like this. It was like a year and a half ago. So with that one as a high watermark, we can't be that surprised that this particular car got up into the 50s, where the Scirocco's don't even bring half that, Corrados don't bring half that. What do you think, Wade?
Did you see my eyes? You see my mouth? I don't believe it. My question to you guys is, you said, Michael, this car had over 100,000 miles and the interior was not that great, and this sold for 55 or whatever it was. Show me an example with under 10,000 miles that's pristine. Is that a six-figure car by comparison? What's the top for a car like this if this is 55?
Yeah, so we saw like a nice 30 or 40,000 mile red one of these earlier in the year or sometime last year. And it was pristine. Like it really was. It looked like a super clean car, almost like that Jaguar F-Type. And that car brought $89,000 on Bring It Trailer. So the high water mark is pretty high for these cars. This car is 88,000 miles. It shows some wear and tear of 88,000 miles, similar to what you'd find in a 100,000 mile car. I didn't think
you've said that over and over on this thing.
I
know that it, because I said it on the last episode too, that this car has wear and tear, but I don't think it's that bad. The interior is actually pretty nice. There's no cracks on the dash. There's chips on the bumper, but I think you're being a little harder on it than it necessarily deserves. But you guys can look go look at the listing and look at the photos for yourself. Is this thing beat up or is it? All right, go ahead, Deeb. Go ahead. You got to get in there. He's got to get in there.
I can tell you're signing off. I can tell you're signing off. And Randy B asked a really good question of this particular car's result. At $56,000. In a couple of years from now, JP, if the GTi market for the best of the best continues to be strong, do you think this car goes up from there? Is there a chance that this guy doesn't break 90,000 miles, just wipes it and cleans it and takes it to shows? In a couple of years from now, could he get $65,000 or $70,000 for this car? Is the market on the GTi, is this a future or current collectible car?
I think so. I think that if he cleaned up because I don't think the interior, or I don't think it's as beat up as you say, I think a lot of those little issues could probably be taken care of and make it a much nicer car. And the thing about the Volkswagen Mark IIs, they're kind of like 911s, right? Like an SE with 140,000 miles is probably worth about the same as an SC with 80,000 miles. I mean, really, how big a difference is it? It really comes down to condition and drivability and service rather than just the miles. And I don't see why this car couldn't be the same thing. Didn't we talk about a Mark I GTi pretty recently? That 84, and that car did $32,000 if I recall. Is that right? I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah, and it underwhelmed. Like we really thought that car with better photography would have done, what it could have brought. We thought that car should have brought more, and I think it only fell at like 25. You've got the listing there. Do you see the number?
Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, $32,000. So who is it? Peter George is bringing up a really good point. The Mark IIs are kind of like the 964 Volkswagens. They are the Volkswagen that everyone. If you love 964s, you probably love Mark II Volkswagens, especially the last 2 years, because they did have the big bumpers, just like the 911 with the 964. They rounded out those diving boards. They got rid of the impact bumpers, essentially. So I think that's a pretty good take. And
same years too.
Exactly. Yeah. Or at least the first 2 years. Yeah. So I think that's the take of the day. Good job, Peter George. All right, let's move on. But real quick, what do you guys think of the results of this Volkswagen GTi? Was that all the money in the world? Does this have room to go? Does this prove that people still have money and they're still spending it on crazy stuff? I think the answer is yes, but let us know what you think. And we are going to make a bunch of new predictions on new cars and study this question. Do buyers still have money to afford classic cars? Right after this. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. There it is. Fine Swiss repair at Our Smiths. We were just at Godden Porsche and Godden Classic yesterday. Saturday, they revealed their Targa 911 for the Restoration Challenge. They'll be showing that car at the Works Reunion in Monterey Car Week just a few weeks from now, and Michael Deeb and I will be there. So if you are making your way down to Car Week, make sure you come and find us and say hello. We'd love to meet you. New people in the Nerd Herd tonight. If you're new to the show, definitely, if you're watching this for the first time, get in there in the chat, introduce yourself. Great people in the Nerd Herd. And for those of you who are already part of the Nerd Herd, if you notice some new people, make sure you welcome them and say hello. And as always, there are more of you watching right now live and more of you in the herd than there are thumbs up. So let's see if we can get some more thumbs up so we can get some more people watching the show while it's live. That's what really makes it fun. All right, Michael Deeb, do people have enough money? Do buyers have enough money to buy classic cars and enthusiast cars on Cars and Bids, Bring a Trailer, PCAR Market, and more? What's the first car that we're going to look at to answer that question?
All right, JP. The first car on the list was brought to us by Buddha, Mike Myers out of Las Vegas. He selected for us a 2022 Ford Bronco Apocalypse Dark Horse 6x6. And I will say that this car will definitely answer the question, because I think whoever paid Apocalypse Manufacturing out of Pompano Beach, Florida, probably spent twice what the truck is worth to turn it into this Kevlar-coated six-wheeled beast of an off-road vehicle. If this car sells, JP, that means that everybody's got money and they're just throwing it around, because I mean, just looking at what's on offer here, John, let's just pretend a Bronco costs $100,000. They had to have spent $150,000 to turn it into this thing. I mean, look at all the work that goes into just the pure fabricating to make something of this nature, and then the wheels and the tires and all the accessory pieces, the winch and the lights and the suspension and the interior is done. I mean, this is just a soup sandwich. Our car is on Cars and Bids. It has 5,800 miles on it. It's on a clean Texas title, and it's offered out of Hurst, Texas. JP, one of the first questions I'm going to ask you to address for us is if you think it's on the right platform. I think Doug DeMiro does really good with sort of these late model SUVs. And so my knee-jerk reaction is like, yeah, for sure, Cars and Bids, if it's going to sell, it'll sell there. But just given what I think the reserve might be, or what this guy might have in this car, I actually begin to wonder if this car would not benefit from getting that much more attention on Bring a Trailer. But obviously they should have hired a real photographer. I think these photos are rubbish. They show the car honestly, but I don't know that they're doing a good enough job of selling whatever it is this guy was buying when he paid to make this car. And so, JP, I think the assets are going to hold it back. I think the platform might have a ceiling, and that ceiling could be at 150 grand, which might not get it done here. There's a lot to unpack. This is a very niche car. It's going to appeal to a very niche earner. And then I think you need to cast the widest net possible to find that person, male or female or pronoun or whatever. And I'm starting to think, JP, despite this being a late model Bronco, that BAT would have been a better place for this to go. Tell me I'm wrong. What do you think?
Yeah, you're going to have to cast a very wide net in order to find the person that wants this car. My biggest question here, I mean, it looks like they went to, I didn't know they sold Rhino Liner by the 55-gallon drum at Costco. I mean, that is a lot of goddamn Rhino Liner right there on this thing. But, why would you buy, I mean, Broncos were kind of hard to get there for those first couple of years that they were available, right? They were late to market. Everyone was hyped up about them. People were excited about stuff like that. So someone bought this thing a couple of years ago. They probably paid all kinds of extra money for it, and then clearly they spent all this extra money doing all this, whatever the hell they did. And why are they getting rid of it already? You went through all the trouble to make this super special custom thing. Did you really think that you were going to get... Did the person think they were going to buy this and make a bunch of money? What's his name? Lucky Lopez here in Las Vegas recently bought a G-Wagon G63 AMG, and he's converting it into a six-wheeler like Mercedes actually made, like I think 12 real ones, and they're worth quite a bit of money. He's put a lot of money and effort and work into it. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a return on his investment or if it's just a big old waste of time. But that it kind of makes sense on a Bronco, or no, I'm sorry, it kind of makes sense on something like a G-Wagon, because people are used to paying $250,000 for G-Squares and stuff like that. But who wants to spend $200,000 or more on something like a Bronco? Wade, what's your impression of this silly thing?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. There is a market for these 6x6 six-wheeled monstrosities. I don't know if Cars and Bids or Bring a Trailer are either a good platform. At Barrett Jackson and Scottsdale, they have a lot of these Jeeps, Rams, custom G-Wagons that are 6x6s, and they bring a ton of money, which is unsurprising because it's all rich, drunk Texas guys who want the most insane off-road, the most crazy thing, that they have everything else, but their neighbor doesn't have this. A Bronco is kind of a weird choice. I haven't seen a 6x6 Bronco, but this is interesting. It does have functional rear axles, which not all 6x6 or six-wheeled conversions have. There are a lot of G-Wagon 6x6s that people spend $500,000 or $600,000 on that mimic the true 6x6 G-Wagons that don't even have functional rear axles. They're just for show. So this seems like a decent build. It seems like everything functions. It's practical. To JP, your point of the Kevlar, the spray, whatever it is, that black textury coating I see on a lot of stuff nowadays, Hummers, Jeeps, pickup trucks. It seems to be like the sort of custom vibe, that look that seemingly people are interested in because they keep putting it on these sorts of builds. But to encapsulate it all, I mean, this is a $250,000 build at least, and you have to know you're not getting your money out of it. And it's nice to see that this has 5,000 or 6,000 miles on it, which for something like this, honestly, is kind of a lot. I mean, I can't possibly imagine driving this a few hundred miles. I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure the guy who bought it, built it, and drove it has had his fill, and now he's like, please let me get some money for it. But I guess stay tuned to find out. It's a hell of a thing, that six-wheeled monstrosity.
All right, Deeb, what's this big old beast going to bring, or is it going to bring anything? Do buyers have enough money to spend on the ultimate enthusiast truck?
All right, so just for context, the website is what did I call them? They're
Apocalypse.
So yeah, so I think they have a button called inventory that takes you to a company called SoFlo, and they make something called the Hellfire. They've got Broncos, they've got Wranglers, Gladiators, TRXs, Hummers, and Rivians that they've done off-road and six-wheel treatment to, and they have lots of cars in stock. So if this listing is your bag, treat yourself to the Apocalypse manufacturing website and then jump over to their inventory and the cars have prices and stuff. I don't see a 6x6 Bronco in stock, but the Hellfires that they're selling essentially as new cars, which looks a little bit like a Gladiator and less like a Bronco, are selling for about 160. I don't know what the price of the donor car is to bring that to market. Somebody else said that they think they saw this car for sale for just $109,000. Even before I saw this, I still felt like this car was going to stall out at around $79,000. But our car is already up to $79,000 because it got a couple of bids since I put mine in. So JP, I'm just going to throw another $10,000 on mine, and I'll go to $89,000. Again, I think it fails to sell because I think this guy's looking for at least 109 or more. It could be that the reserve is at 100. It might sell. And everything I'm saying is pure speculation because nothing's concrete. But JP, I just think it's got a day to close. It's at 79,000 on 14 bids. It's super, super niche. I just don't see somebody. I think if somebody could drop 100 on this, why wouldn't you just go order your own and get like a brand new one that somebody didn't fart in the seat in? That being said, it's a soft market. You pose the question, who can afford these things? So maybe this with 6,000 miles is the value that somebody's looking for. But man, it's tough for me to swallow that Doug DeMuro could throw this like literal beast on his site and sell it in the natural auction. I just can't wrap my brain around this. This would be as weird a result as we've seen just this summer. So JP, 89 to you, and I'm convinced it won't sell at that number or in this auction. What is your number and what's your take on the result?
I think you're right that this is the wrong auction platform. Of course, DeMuro is the weirdest guy in the business, but this car needs eyeballs. Really, I think Wade's got it down. This car needs to be at a Barrett Jackson in like Florida. The sellers shouldn't have put Rhino liner all over it. They should have put Make America Great on it. They should, if they made this a MAGA truck, this thing would have sold for $300,000. But I don't think Doug DeMuro is getting this thing done. I think it gets. I'll go. What was your number, Deeb? One more time. I forgot already.
89. 10.
Oh man, yeah. I'll go over. I'll go 95 and pass it on to Wade. But I don't think it sells. I don't think it sells.
Really, at 95, you don't think it sells? Because you're really close to where I think it would be. Like the reserve might be at 95. I think you're in the hunt. You know what I mean? The reserve's at 100. 95, Doug might trip it. Like you're really close, JP. I just think you should reconsider.
What do you think, Wade?
All right, Wade, where are you at?
Yeah, I was close to JP, so I'm gonna one pip him up. I'm gonna say $96,666 for all the death and the apocalypse and stuff. But
give me that again. 96 and what?
96,666. All the sixes.
Oh wow, evil.
But
yeah, okay.
Not going to sell. I think somebody wants over 100 for it. They should probably take whatever's offered though, because once this thing has some sort of price listed online, it's only going to go lower. You're not going to have somebody come and be like, "Wow, I would have paid 150 for it," and write him a check. It's just not going to happen. So, it's probably over 100K reserve. It's probably not going to sell. Maybe it sells afterwards, but it's not going to show that sold sticker.
Tom is asking the right question that none of us asked. I was thinking about this, but it wasn't built on a Raptor, right? It was just built on a regular Bronco, like a Wild Country. It's got the regular engine in it.
It's got 400 horsepower.
Right? Yeah, well.
It's got 400 horsepower, but I don't know if that makes it a Raptor or not.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine that part of the Apocalypse package means an engine upgrade or something like that. He says, Michael Deeb says time out.
Yeah, so JP, the stock motor made 330 horse and 415 torque. Coming out of there, Apocalypse tuned the motor to 400 horsepower and provides, but a dyno sheet is not provided to verify. But JP, you were correct. So this guy went full tilt. He did cosmetic. He did, obviously the build of the 6x6, but he also boosted the motor to carry around all that extra weight with a 10-speed automatic. So for sure at 330, that's not a Raptor, and at 400 horsepower, it did come with a motor, which means it's the full tilt. So good point. Thank you, Tom, for asking.
All right. Well, what do you guys think this monster six-wheeler Bronco will bring on Cars and Bids? Will Doug DeMuro find that enthusiast that still has enough money to be able to afford to buy something like this, or is this truck just ready for the apocalypse, and that's the only time anyone will ever want this thing? Let us know in the comments. Your bids are always welcome, and we love seeing if you're better at this than we are. Before we get to the next car, I want to shout out to new Nerd Herd member. We got Dimitri hanging out. Who else is new tonight? We got Dimitri, I know for sure. If you're new in there, make sure you say hello. Deeb, you don't get to say, hey, this person's new or that person's new, because you always like pick out someone who has been there forever, and then they always get
Silver Benz. Is Silver Benz new? Because he
like Rob Churchhouse. Welcome to the Nerd Herd. I mean, Rob's like the first guy. Ross is the first guy that was ever a nerd. We love you guys in the Nerd Herd. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah. What state is the town of New Zealand in, JP? Because I want to give a shout out to our new member, Ross Churchhouse.
Yes, exactly. All right. What's the next car on the list? Do buyers have enough money to still buy classic, enthusiast, and sports cars on Bring a Trailer? We are answering that question tonight with some crazy cars, and we're going to another auction site that we don't go to very often, Hagerty Marketplace. What do we got, Michael Deeb? You know this car.
Yeah. Oh, JP, to shamelessly plug my own listing, is this 1995 Porsche 911 Carrera Coupe that is currently on Hagerty Marketplace. Our car is showing just 58,000 original miles. It is essentially a 3-owner car. The current owner has had the car for 11 years in Oakland, California. JP, we took some pictures of this car. Grand Prix white matched with an all black leather interior. And JP, as a 993 fan, much like myself, the way you are, in fact, you know these cars technically better than I do. Would you not agree that 80% of the white cars have a tan interior? So to find a Grand Prix white 95 with an all black, I think is rare enough to begin with. Add to that this car was ordered with the factory limited slip differential, factory automatic brake differential, and this car even comes with a factory short shift kit. So low miles, interesting colorway, and some very cool driver-focused essential options on the car. I definitely think, JP, that this car was ordered for a customer and not something that the dealer would have built for themselves for regular inventory. Most of those cars don't come with such cool options, and they're usually guard red or black with a tan interior. So this thing in white and black with some driver options, I think is a really cool car. I've had the opportunity to drive this car for several hundred miles to a couple of different events for marketing, as we've had the listing live on Hagerty Marketplace. And JP, don't look now, but a certain Carbine 123 is the high bidder at $49,993. Spoiler alert, it's entirely possible that this car winds up in the deep south. You never know, JP. Anything could happen. I'll recuse myself from bidding on these cars. But JP, 95s, as you often say, and I have learned by really talking about Porsches with you a lot over the last 7 years, the really smart 993 buyer will look for a sort of a Series 1 car, which the 95s are, versus the Series 2 cars because they're less problematic. And I'll let you explain that in shorter layman's terms. But this car with the low miles and the cool options, thus being a non-varial ram car, I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people and wind up being a good value. The later 993s wind up all being S's, and they bring, kind of ridiculous money. But these early narrow body cars with some cool options wind up being sort of the best air-cooled value for a pristine driving experience. And this car's never been hit. It's a spectacular driver quality car, and I think whoever winds up winning this car is going to be extremely happy with it. JP, for quite a few weeks there, I was thinking I'd buy this car myself, but I couldn't get rid of my own car fast enough to make room for this in the garage, and I didn't want my seller to lose out on the height of the summer season. So our car closes this week. It's off to a really good start. You've driven this car a little bit. You know the car well. What do you think about this particular listing? And then we'll get into the numbers. Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, I had the fortune to be able to drive it in San Francisco, on the downtown streets of San Francisco. We drive so many Porsches. We're very blessed and lucky to be able to do that. A lot of times with the air-cooled cars, particularly the 993s and 964s, I've owned both of those. They're always modded, or like we go out and drive an RS or a turbo or something crazy. You almost forget what a stock one is like. You know, every single one I get into has coilovers or wheels or something like that. Exhaust, all the things. This one's like bone stock, and you get in the car and you're like, oh yeah, these things are really drivable. This car would be the ultimate car to drive every day, anywhere. The original marketing material when the 993 came out, look it up on YouTube. It's pretty funny. There's a video that Porsche put out with Patrick Stewart from Star Trek and Jerry Seinfeld and a bunch of engineers, and their whole shtick was like, oh, we wanted to make a 911 that you could drive over train tracks without slowing down. And it's true. The stock suspension on this thing will take anything. Drive one of these in downtown San Francisco, and you'd be like Patrick Stewart going, yeah, make it so. Let's just jump over everything. The car just is just unbelievably usable. And this particular car is just an excellent example of an unmolested 993 that reminds you maybe you don't want to mod one. This would be I would love to have this car in my garage. Wade, I actually think that this would be an excellent first 911 for you. I know you're a Ferrari guy and you're an enthusiast, but this would be like the kind of car that I think, you know, you don't drive your Ferrari every day. You got a really nice cushy Mercedes, but you know, that's not very enthusiast. That's a beautiful car, but it's not.
Hey, it's an AMG. What do you want to race?
Okay,
you want to race?
It's faster than anything I drive, that's for sure. But I think if you wanted to have an actual, you know, 3-pedal experience and still be able to drive it around every day and have air conditioning that works in the Las Vegas heat, this would be a good way to go. Have I sold you on it? Are you going to bid?
You know what? You might have sold me. Here are a couple things that I like. First off, fun fact: this is the same year I was born, so we're twinning. I love the fact that it's completely untouched. You know, a lot of the mods and things we've seen, you know, it's really hit or miss, and it's very easy to take a beautiful car like this and attempt to improve it and end up ruining it and really kind of taking out a good chunk of potential buyers. But to your point, you know, Porsche at the time made this car a certain way to the best of their technological abilities based on being both driver focused and comfortable and semi-practical, but a lot of fun. And I think going back to that era and enjoying the car as is probably pretty special. And obviously this is a car that's not a garage queen, which I appreciate. It has a nice balance of miles and also being really well maintained. So, you know what, since you guys both passed on it, I might just have to consider it. It seems like it's gotten a general seal of approval from you guys who have driven it already.
Love this car. I certainly didn't pass on it. I just don't have any room for another one right now. Michael Deeb, what's this car? Oh, yeah. You can't answer that question because you're representing this car.
No, I know. But let me give you some context, JP. So first of all, the car is not perfectly stock. There are tinted windows. There's an aftermarket head unit. And this car has been upgraded by the seller when he owned it. The 2 rear mufflers have been upgraded to Pfister mufflers. So the car has just a nice little burble. It doesn't sound like a racing exhaust, but it does have a little more noise than a stock car. And I think it's very tastefully done. And then there are literally 6 boxes and bins of spare parts and paraphernalia that come with the car. So it's not just the car, but it's boxes of spares. There's some taillights, there's some other mufflers, and just all kinds of goodies. So everything that this guy has collected over the last 11 years will be included in the sale. And I just think it makes it as a whole lot a really tremendous value. JP, the top of the market for these cars is just over 100,000, 120,000. This car does have some miles. There's a little tiny bit of patina on the car, as you'd expect from a car with just over 50,000 miles. But our car is currently sitting at $49,993 on 19 bids. Our car does not close until Wednesday at noon Pacific time. You must be registered to bid. JP, there's my spiel. What do you and Wade think? Give us your bids.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some pretty good results for 993s on Bring a Trailer. You know, Hagerty Marketplace is one of those platforms that is kind of hit and miss. My partner Michael Deeb won't pat himself on the back, but you know, I know that pretty much everything he lists and represents sells. So that's not always the case with other reps on the platform, and I think the platform is still in a place where it's in its infancy. It's still trying to find its way. I think this car in particular is kind of a known car. I think there's some people out there that have heard of this car because of it's kind of made the rounds in our community, and people know it's out there. And I think when a car this clean pops up in the community, the word spreads quickly, and so I think that's gonna help it. I do think it would do better on BAT, so I'm gonna be a bit conservative, but I'm gonna say 89,993 and hand it off to Wade. What do you think?
I'm gonna give this car a little bit more credit. Like you said, JP, if you've been wanting a car like this, I think you're scouring all the auction sites probably weekly or every couple of weeks, and you know when a car like this comes, and you're going to be comfortable bidding on it, you know, even on a new platform or a platform you haven't used before. Super nice example. I don't think you're going to see another one of these next weekend for sale, so that's, you know, it's going to put a little bit of pressure on it. It's a matter of over 100K, under 100K for me. I think it's going to be under 100K, and I'm going to give it $92,222.
There we go.
Bid. Yeah, you know, the ones that we've seen sell recently have been like silver ones and stuff like that. So Deeb's right. You never, ever see a white one with black interior. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen one before. I've seen other white 993s around. I've seen 993Ss in white with all black interior, but usually they're blue or red or tan or a combination of those colors. But to have a solid black one, yeah, this car really is. I wish I was in the market for one. What do you guys think this excellent 993 1995 in nearly perfect driver condition will bring on Hagerty Marketplace? Will my partner Michael Deeb be able to get it done? For the record, Hagerty does not pay us for this show, but they should. So give your Hagerty rep a call. If Hagerty is your insurance provider, call them and say, hey, I think you guys should give money to Bid Nerds. Just
yes.
thought I'd throw that out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And if you haven't hit the subscribe, like, or notification button, please do that. And let's move on to one more car to see if it'll help us answer the question, do buyers have enough money? Can they still afford to buy classic, enthusiast, and sports cars on the auction sites? What's this last car we're going to talk about, Michael Deeb?
Hey, Wade, do you have a V12 Ferrari?
I do have a V12 Ferrari.
I have a V12 Ferrari. JP, how come you don't have a V12 Ferrari? Come on, man. Everybody on the show's got one, bro. JP, we are pandering to our guest host in honor of Wade Bennet coming back to Slum It on Bid Nerds. JP selected for us this absolutely gorgeous, I think they call this Titanio. I didn't look at the color. You think I'm right? Is that Titanio or Grigio or something, right?
One of those.
Yeah, one of those. Silver S 1998 Ferrari 550 Maranello. Our particular car is actually of a rare construction because it does have the 6-speed manual. At the time that these cars were being built, a majority of the buyers were opting for the F1 single clutch gearbox because they wanted the flappy paddles to mimic that of the F1 drivers of the period. As time has gone on, the fewer produced manuals bring a high premium over their single sequential clutch gearboxes back in the day. So this car having the correct gearbox and stunning colorway of this like Titanio or Grigio colorway with the sort of ox blood red leather interior and just 34,975 miles from new. Our car out of Monterey, California is listed on PCAR Market. Decent photos, JP, not great photos, but they're decent. I will go ahead and say it right off the bat. I think this car is on the wrong platform. This car should absolutely have gone to BAT, where I think it would have done well. My guess is when I see a car like this on PCAR Market, my knee-jerk reaction, John, is that the guy has an unrealistic sense of what the car is worth, and only PCAR Market would have agreed to what was probably an unreasonable request for the reserve to try and either protect his asset or try to create a fence where somebody would have to jump very high to get over and get the car sold. John, as we dig a little deeper, and I don't see it listed, yeah, I'm just looking. Registered in Florida, seller, private collection out of Southern California, not offered with 35,000. PCAR Market does not lead with the fact that this car just show an accident of minor damage on its Carfax report. So again, PCAR Market, never one to shy away from burying the lead. You have to do a little digging to find out that this car is not pristine. And if you think Porsche buyers are finicky, JP, try selling a V12 Ferrari that's over 25, 30 years old with an accident on the Carfax. I think this is tough sledding, and I think because of the Carfax match with this platform and what I'm guessing is an unrealistic reserve, JP, I don't think this car is going anywhere. My guess is we could all put our feet up and just wait and find it in the deal tank for and start the negotiations there. So, John, I hand it right back over to you. A car that our partner will tell us, if you take the exhaust manifold off this and put equal length long tube headers on it, that's it. Just that one thing, JP. If you drove this car, I am fairly certain you would never let it go. They would have to pry this car from your cold, dead hands because headers make this motor sound like an F1 car. And when you couple it to this manual transmission, it could create for you one of the most incredible driving experiences that exist. And while Wade will tell you he's so happy that he owns a V12 Ferrari, if this had headers and it was his, I think he'd choose it over the car that he has right now, because it just, that combination of sound and shifting, it make you feel like a hero every time you went to the grocery store. So, JP, I hand it back to you. The 550 Maranello, never a secret. These cars have always sold for big money. Michael Bay's had one. He threw it shamelessly into all of his films. What do you think, JP? Have you ever had the privilege?
Nope. A 6-speed Ferrari is just the way to go. I've never driven one of these. I'd sure love to. I'm going to just hand it right over to Wade because he knows these cars really well. There was a question asked, I think Peter George was saying something about the 550s never came with an F1. Is that true? Does anybody know?
So the 550, I think, was either all or 99% all 6-speed. The 575s are the one that introduced the F1, and the 6-speed 575s are pretty rare. But the 550 as a 6-speed is a great car in and of itself.
More common.
Yeah. This one is not the greatest example. Just glancing at the listing, like you said, there's an accident and also not a ton of service records via the Carfax, via the listing. Maybe there's more buried somewhere, but just glancing at it, there's not a ton of information about this car. And as a Ferrari owner and as, you know, someone who understands other Ferrari owners, people want the documentation, especially on a car like this, which has some perceived value and provenance for somebody who's looking for it. With that being said, I think that this is the kind of car that you can get away with driving a lot and being okay with, because it's not going to be a crazy high value. I think from a buyer's perspective. From the seller, I think you're right. He's probably going to be unrealistic. PCAR Market is not the place to sell a Ferrari. I don't know why. I mean, maybe they're trying something new, but it really doesn't even seem like a good place for them unless they just want to add to their list of things that they have. You know, it always, to me, feels kind of like a waste of time and effort. And you see that dash needs quite a bit of work there, but that's how Ferraris are. Yeah, it always seems like a waste of time and effort, in my opinion, to go through, as crappy as these pictures are. It still took them time to do it all and put it on a platform like this. And then, like we're all suspecting, end up at the deal tank at like a ridiculous number. At that point, just like put it on Auto Trader and call it a day. Like, it's kind of odd. So we'll see what happens. I would love to own a car like this, maybe not this specific one, but at the right price, potentially. I don't think the seller is going to be reasonable.
What do we think it's going to bring, Michael Deeb? Does anybody have enough money for this?
Yeah. So JP, one more thing. 5 years ago, but just 1,100 miles ago, was the last time that the timing belt was done. So by time, this car has aged out and will need timing belts. And on a V12, where I think they have to drop the motor to get that done, that's an expensive proposition. You know, on the cheap, $7,000 or $8,000, and on the expensive, $17,000 to $18,000 just to get the timing belts done. Add to that little bit higher mileage, a little bit different colorway, and the fact that it's had a minor accident in the front right corner. JP, I think this is, if the belts are done and it doesn't have an accident, I think this is easily 135 in today's market. V12 manual, it could even be a $155,000 car. But on PCAR market, with the things that it's got going against it, JP, my bid is $99,800 where it fails to sell, and I think we see this this car in the deal tank for somewhere closer to 150 than would be closer to 100. So $99,800 is my bid to you, JP. This car needs belts and it's got a Carfax. What do you think?
Yeah, it's DOA. PCAR market is not the place to get this done. Go ahead. You're gonna say something.
It's at 69. It's at $69,420 on one bid, and it closes tomorrow. I forgot to set it up for you, JP. I went right to my bid.
That's
69 grand.
Yeah,
I'm
gonna go under you. I'm gonna say 90, and say obviously it doesn't sell. It'll be interesting to see if he wants $180,000 for it in the chump bucket. I'm with you, Deeb. This seller has crazy unrealistic expectations, and he was rejected on the platforms that told him so. Wade, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I mean, there's like three things at play here, right? Like what the car is probably worth given what it is. And as it sits on its best day, it's still over 100K, but just barely, maybe 110 or 115. That's probably what it's worth. I've seen really nice examples of this car with even not low miles, but 10K miles sell for 150 or 160 or more for the right color and service history. That's maybe not where this seller is, but he's probably pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised if it sits at the deal tank for like 145 or 150, but that's just too high. As far as what it sells or doesn't sell for, it's going to be sad to see it under 100K, but I agree with you both. I don't think it hits 100K. I think it stalls out at like 94,000. Maybe there's two more bids, but I mean, there's nothing that's going to go right for this car, unfortunately. And hopefully, he just kind of lists it in a classified ad, and whoever buys it doesn't see that it was on PCAR Market and has all this stuff.
Yeah,
Wade, let you keep the under, JP. Let you keep the under. So you have all the real estate under 94. I think you're in good shape, JP.
I mean, how many times can PCAR Market burn people with these ridiculous reserves, right? Because friend of the show, Anthony Vieira from Our Smiths, he says, I like PCAR Market because it's a place, there's always an opportunity to get a steal. A lot of times cars that aren't Porsches get listed on the platform. He's like, hey, maybe I can, be one of the people that does buy whatever weirdo car is on there. But we just see time and time again that people take the time to go onto the platform and register and bid, and you get all this action on the auction, and at the end of the day you see what the chum bucket price is, and it's twice as much as what everyone was bidding. It's like, it's just a big old jerk off, guys. Come on. I think people are getting tired of it, and they're like, well, maybe I would bid on this car, but I just know it's not. I'll just wait for the chum bucket and just make an offer like any other stupid classified listing. What's the point of the auction at all if it's just going to go in the classified sections? I don't know. What do you guys think of this beautiful Ferrari? Is it an opportunity? Will PCAR Market surprise us and actually get this car sold at a reasonable price? Will this car bring a bunch of money? Do people actually have the money for something like this? Or is money for special cars that are not perfect drying up out there? Let us know what you think in the comments. And gents, that is a Bid Nerds episode in the can. Want to give a shout out to everyone, our friends at Vegas Auto Fest. Wade, thanks for wearing the Vegas Auto Fest shirt. Vegas Auto Fest is September 21st, coming up here in Las Vegas. Chef William and myself put that show on every year, and we are excited to have you guys join us in Las Vegas. If you haven't made plans yet, make sure you get over to vegasautofest.com and get your tickets now. It's going to be a great show. This is going to be a great year for people to come to Vegas for the show, because a lot of times Vegas Auto Fest is at the same time as the Life is Beautiful festival, which means like it's impossible to get hotel rooms. They're really expensive. But this year, Life is Beautiful isn't happening. So it'll be pretty inexpensive to come to Vegas and stay at a nice place and be able to come out to enjoy the show. So hopefully,
do you remember?
You guys
do you
will
remember
be
last year, JP, on Saturday night after the show, Rami wanted to have dinner at the Paris Hotel,
Yes.
and a bunch of us, I think we had Carbine in town, and Yuri and Duckworth and all the guys, and so we all jumped into an Uber and tried to get to the Strip on a Saturday night during Life is Beautiful. The Uber drive was like $100, and we got out of the car about 2 blocks away from the Paris Hotel, and that sounds close, but in Vegas 2 blocks is like three miles, and so we walked in because we were just stopped in traffic for like 20 minutes, and we're like, we're gonna miss dinner. So the idea that you guys have shifted off that weekend, I actually think is a much bigger deal than maybe the audience will appreciate. It'll just make getting in and around Vegas at that time that much easier. And I think a little deeper into September, the weather cools off a bit, sort of ensures that we're going to have just really pristine weather for that time of the year to have a car show outdoors and get to spend quality time with our friends in the sun without melting. So JP, good on to you and Chef. I know so many people in the herd are planning to come to Vegas for that. Me and the Bay Area crew are all going to be there, and we hope to see you all. So if you're on the fence, let us encourage you to spend a teeny bit of money and get yourself out there. You'll have a really good time.
That's right. VegasAutoFest.com to get your tickets. Do it now. We'll see you guys live Wednesday night. Thanks, Wade. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Wade.
No.